Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel where we learn to be a better programmer, and this is part 5 of our Learn the MERN Stack video tutorial where we're building a full stack web application using MongoDB, ReactJS, Node.js, and Express.js. Alright, so in the past 4 videos what we did was we built out our server-side implementation, which will handle user authentication as well as creating and storing our notes in a database, Alright, so in this video, this is the first video of our client-side implementation. So we're going to switch gears and we're going to start to implement our client side. That's going to communicate with our backend using React, and we're going to use this nice component React YouTube, which is a nice wrapper for the YouTube API. And then we're also going to use Material UI, which is a React implementation of the material design framework that Google implemented. All right, so if you want to just follow along and just do the client side, all you need to do is clone this repo here and check out the branch tutorial part 4, and you'll be able to just code along with me. And so otherwise, if you want to just skip ahead and get to the end of the code, you'll just be able to clone tutorial part 5 and check out that branch, and you'll see what the code will look like at the end of this video. All right, so before we get started, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos. My Visual Studio Code, and I've created a new branch called tutorial part 5. So if you want to follow along, you can just say you can clone get to, tutorial part 4, and then you can say get checkout -b and then tutorial part 5, and then you'll be able to code along with me. Or if you want the entire code and you want to skip ahead, you can just say get checkout tutorial part 5. All right, awesome. So in this video, or in the intro, I basically said that we're going to install our dependencies and set up our React project. So to initialize a React project, you basically say npx create React app, and then you also say what directory you want it to be. So in this case, I'm going to say inside of client. Okay, awesome. So we see that everything installed perfectly, and you can start your server by running yarn start, yarn build, yarn test, and so on. All right. So if we cd into client, all right, we actually now need to install a few dependencies. So we're going to need React YouTube. So we're going to say npm install React YouTube, and we're going to say also at material UI core, and those are all we're going to need for right now. All right, so everything installed properly. All right, so now let's go into our source directory over here. We actually don't need our terminal anymore. So the way React projects are laid out is there's an app.css file, there's an app.js file here, which just returns a div with the class name app. And then there's some test files here, so app.test and setup test, service worker. And then index.js is basically the file that renders your application, right? So if it takes this app component, which is inside of here, all right? So if what we want to do is render our own application, we can just put everything inside of this app function, all right? We're definitely not going to put everything in this one class or one file. So what we're going to do is we're going to spread everything out. But to show you how this can work, what we're going to do is we're just going to have the YouTube link inside of here. And so it's just a div, right? So now what we need is actually, you know, I'm not going to do a div. I'm just going to say make it a grid from material UI. So I'm just going to import grid from at material UI core. And then inside of this, so the grid has some unique properties in that it can be a container or an item. So I'm just going to say container, and then the direction is going to be column. So it's basically Material UI's way of like encapsulating a flexbox. So we can justify center, and then we can say align items is equal to center as well. And then, all right, so inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to have a grid item, and then we're going to say XS is equal to 12. All right, so what that means is, so like I said, the grid can have a container property and an item property. So they're not mutually exclusive, but so what this means is you're going to have a container, and then inside of that container you can have any number of items that are going to fit inside of that container. All right, and then this XS basically says, at screen sizes greater than XS, I want you to take up 12 columns. So the Material UI grid has a set number of columns, and that's 12. So basically this will take up the entire width of the column. Okay, so now what we need to put in here is we're going to put in a text field. A text field from Material UI, which we pull in here. All right, and that text field is going to say that the value is going to be equal to video link, which we're going to set up in a second. And then the name is going to be video link. And the placeholder is going to be equal to enter a YouTube URL. And the variant is going to be outlined. And the style, actually we don't need a style, and then on change, we have to give it an on change. And so this is the function that I'm going to pass in, and it's going to pass in an event, and then we're just going to call an on change of event. And I'm going to write these functions in a second, so you'll follow, be able to follow along. All right, so we need to actually import a few things here. So if I import, yes, so I need to import use state from React. So what this will allow us to do is, for functional components, we have to, there's either stateless or stateful components. So the way you say, all right, I have a piece of state that I want to share across my application or across my component, you can basically say const video link as an example, and then set video link. And then you're going to set that equal to use state, and then you pass in an initial value. So what this basically is saying is use state and pass in the initial value, and the video link is set to empty. But then when you want to set that video link, you would call set video link and pass in a string. So what that will look like is if I implement an on change method, on const on change is equal to, and then it passes in an event, and then I'm going to say set video link of e.target.value. Right? So when this text field changes, we're going to set that video link property to whatever the value is inside of that. All right, and just so we can test this, we're just going to say console.log e.target.value, and we'll see this in the console. All right, so now we have our text field, and then below the text field, I'm just going to have a grid item, and then it's going to be XS is equal to 12 again, and inside of here is just going to be YouTube. Right, YouTube. So I need to pull that in. So I'm going to say import YouTube, import YouTube from React YouTube. Nice. Cool. So now the YouTube component has a couple of props that we're going to need to set. So the YouTube component has a property called video ID. And so the video ID is actually not the entire URL, so we're going to need to pull out the video ID from the URL. All right, so what this is going to look like, we're just going to say get video ID. And then it's just going to be a function. And then the YouTube component also has an options property. So what that looks like is we basically say width is going to be 100%, and then player vars is going to be equal to start, and then parse int of video timestamp. So this is basically saying we're going to set the start time to a field called video timestamp. All right, so in here, I'm going to say const video timestamp is set video timestamp, and then we're going to say use state 0, like that. All right, so this is going to allow us to basically say, if at some point when user starts to watch the video and we store their stopping point of the video, we will have that. We'll be able to load that dynamically when they reload the note, for example. All right, so so that is that, and now I need to implement the get video ID function. So it's going to be const get video ID, and it's going to be an arrow function. It doesn't take in any parameters, and then inside of this, so the video ID is actually so what that looks like is we basically have a check. So we say if video link is empty or video link is undefined, then we just return an empty string like that. But then the video link, what we need to do is we need to say, so let split video link is equal to video link dot split of v equals. All right, so v equals is basically, it's like a so a YouTube link will look like this. So www.youtube.com/ and then I think there would be /watch or something, and then there's like some query parameters like this. So say v equals, and then the ID, and then there's some more parameters that you can put inside like this. So what we need to do is we need to get everything after the v equals. So we're going to say 1, and then we're going to basically say we're going to need to get the substring, everything before the ampersand of this split video link. So we want to get this index of the ampersand. So so what we're going to say is we're going to say let ampersand location is equal to split video link dot index of ampersand, like this. And then if ampersand location is not equal to -1, so it basically says if it actually is in the string, then we want to say we want to get the substring of everything leading up to that ampersand. So we want to say we want to just return split video link dot substring of 0 to ampersand location. Otherwise, we return split video link like this. All right. So so that's all I think all we needed to do to test this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our terminal, and we're going to say npm start. All right, so here we are on localhost 3000. It's not nicely styled, but if we paste in a YouTube link, we see that the YouTube video is loaded, which is awesome. So so now so if we open up the console, inspect, and we look at the console, we can see that the YouTube link was logged properly, and then we pulled out the video URL properly. All right, and then we can hit play, and the video link the video starts playing. Okay, so what we did in this video is we installed out some of our dependencies, and then we created a simple component inside of this app structure that allows us to set some state, and then we can, given a YouTube link, we load the YouTube video, and then you can now play it. All right, so this is a nice foundation for us going forward when we're going to actually start to implement some of our styling, and then also have the text editor alongside of it. All right, so if you like the video, please feel free to hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos.